Welcome back into UFO Fantasy Football. I'm Jackson. That's Finn. And this is part 2 of our wide receiver rankings. As you can see, if you missed the first video, that's where we did all these guys. Go check that out first, and then come back to this one. But let's get going with Tier 5. I think, first off, I think we throw T. Higgins there. We talked about Jamar Chase before and how this offense is just super high-powered. And T. Higgins, I mean, he's like the 1B to Jamar Chase's 1A, and he's going to benefit from everything.
Yeah, I mean, Tier 5 makes it almost sound bad, not when you say Tier 5, but these guys are rock solid.
Yeah, these are all top 24 receivers in our minds.
Yeah, and for some reason if I say T. Higgins is like my number one receiver on my fantasy team, I wouldn't love it for some reason.
Yeah, I don't like the sound of that.
But I kind of know what I'm going to get. And I've had T. Higgins, both of his first 2 years, and I've loved having him because I kind of know he gets you in that, 13 to 18 range. He has a couple big games here and there to help you out. And I mean, on that offense with Burrow and Chase and those guys, I mean, I think you can expect the same from this year.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next guy. We got Brandon Cooks, who is also Mr. Consistency. If you look back at like his last at least few years, it's like almost always hitting 1,000 yards. And even with Davis Mills last year, he produced. He was wide receiver 2, I believe. And I mean, nothing has really changed down there besides a little more chemistry even.
Yeah, I thought I heard there was some coaching with the coaching staff shuffle. They might be changing up the scheme a little bit.
I don't think that'll affect him, honestly.
I hope not, because if he can do what he did last year with Davis Mills, I mean, that's impressive. He almost had, in the last video, we just talked about how much we love Michael Pittman. He almost had identical numbers to Pittman last year.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, So Pittman had 129 targets. Cooks had 134. Pittman had 88 receptions. Cooks had 90 receptions. Pittman had 1,082 yards. Cooks had 1,037 yards. They both had 6 touchdowns.
Wow, that's
crazy.
Insane.
Yeah. And we love Pittman because there's a decent amount of vacated targets there. He's still getting better, and they got Matt Ryan.
And he's younger.
And so Brandon Cooks is kind of, again, he's been solid. We kind of know what he is. We don't love Davis Mills. It's not like their team got a lot better. But I think, he just got a pretty big deal, too. I think he got like a 3-year extension.
Yeah, I think
so. That also makes me just feel better that the team's invested in him.
Yeah, he's just like sneaky good.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he goes later than he should in drafts. And then, you're always like, oh, I would have taken Brandon Cooks there.
Yeah. I mean, and you were higher on him at first than I was, but it was a similar situation where I keep looking into it. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I think he's going to be all right again this year.
Yeah, now you have him 2 spots higher than I do.
I know.
You keep stealing my guys.
Sorry.
All right. Next guy I think is Jalen Waddle, Miami Dolphins, 2nd-year receiver, I think. Wow, he was a rookie last year. That's kind of insane to me too.
Right.
Everyone just kind of looks over him because of Jamar Chase's year, but Waddle produced. He kind of carried me to like the top 3 in one league, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's just he's got Tyreek Hill now to compete with targets, but I don't really think that's gonna change his outlook a whole lot. It definitely a little bit. It definitely moved him down a little bit when they signed Tyreek, but I think he's going to be the guy that goes across the field when like Tyreek Hill's stretching it. And with Tua, I mean, I think he's going to be better in mid-range than he is deep ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely possible. I'm trying to pull up his receptions from last year. I mean, I think you have him higher than I do. I moved him down. I have him at 18 on my list.
Yeah, I have him at 15.
Okay, because I have DJ Moore at 13 actually, which is I think a pretty big discrepancy that we have.
Yeah, I have him at 20. So yes.
Okay, now like Jalen Waddle had 104 receptions, 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. So again, he could easily score more than 6 touchdowns this year, but it's just an unknown with Tyreek kind of moving in there as that number one option.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like a Higgins type situation. Like I still would be very comfortable playing Waddle as my number
Yeah,
2,
definitely.
wide out, and I think he can. I love those guys that get a lot of catches in PPR leagues because I feel like that gives you a pretty good floor, and that's a lot of times I'm looking for that consistency week to week.
And well, you mentioned that. I don't think we have mentioned it that this is all PPR, full PPR.
Yeah,
rankings, no standard, no half, and redraft, not dynasty.
right.
Dynasty changes it a little bit, maybe not a massive amount, but a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, and you brought him up. Next up is DJ Moore.
DJ Moore. Oh, yeah. I think it's another one of those names where you're just like, DJ Moore. Yeah, he's all right. But he only had 4 touchdowns last year, and he's right in the mix with all of those guys. I mean, he's definitely due to break out from a touchdown standpoint. I mean, he had 164 targets last year, which was top 10. He had 93 receptions, almost 1,200 yards, and only 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, that number should be higher.
It should be. However, his quarterback is Sam Darnold.
For now, until Baker gets over there.
Yeah.
I keep hearing that they're trying to work out a deal.
I haven't seen that all day today.
I would see. I mean, and I also, when I was working on these rankings, I had that in the back of my head. Because I would think that I think obviously Baker is a step above Sam Darnold. Well, and they had Sam Darnold didn't play the whole year. They even had like Cam Newton last year, didn't they?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was a disaster, and he still did that. And I mean, now you can view it 2 different ways. Christian McCaffrey was hurt, so Christian McCaffrey didn't get all those receptions that sometimes he eats away at, but he was like the only guy in town, and he still put that up with horrible quarterback play. So I mean, I'm very high on DJ Moore. In one of my keeper leagues, I have to make a decision on keeping DJ Moore or AJ Brown.
Ooh, that's tough.
Right. As of right now, I'm leaning towards AJ Brown, but I think it's tougher than people think. You know?
Like we have them 6 spots apart, but just you saying those 2 names, I couldn't tell you.
I mean, like, DJ Moore had much better last 2 years than AJ Brown.
Yeah.
So I mean, now you'd be keeping him because of what your expectations are for this year, next year. But so that might be why I lean towards AJ Brown, because I think he might have a higher ceiling, but I don't even know.
Yeah.
I think it's close.
I think, unfortunately, it's this year, not next year. Because if they do get Baker, I'd like to see how they kind of gel together. Because what if it's Odell Beckham situation, and he just doesn't want to throw the ball that way?
Well, yeah, that's true.
I mean, I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
But it's obviously in the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, and I think and if they have another bad year, they might get a new coaching staff next year. I think all of these reasons are making me lean towards AJ Brown. And that's how we have them tiered,
which makes sense.
But I still like DJ Moore a lot.
All right. Next up in this tier, we got Mike Williams, Los Angeles Chargers, and we kind of talked a little bit about him in the last video when we were mentioning Keenan Allen. It's just that offense is so prolific, so good. Justin Herbert, you could argue he's one of like top 3 quarterbacks in the league right now.
Oh yeah. I mean, at least from a fantasy standpoint,
Yeah, for sure.
That's how I'm. Yeah.
And he's just, I mean, he's going to get the ball to whoever he can. That arm is insane. And Mike Williams being like the downfield threat, Herbert can get it there. It's just a matter of kind of staying healthy, and just he needs more, I think, like more targets.
Yeah. So I mean, last year, he did pretty well for himself. Keenan Allen had 159 and Mike Williams had 130.
Oh wow, that's closer than I thought.
And again, though, Now this is not as drastic as the Keenan Allen with only having 6 touchdowns. Mike Williams had a solid 9 touchdowns, which is like the average for these 1 and 2 tier or wide receiver ones, wide receiver twos. But again, with the Eckler explosion last year in touchdowns, he could easily beef that up to like 10 to 12 touchdowns this year.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at these stats right now. DK Metcalf had 12 touchdowns last year. Mike Evans had 14 touchdowns last year. And they gave Mike Williams that big deal. I know they drafted Josh Palmer last year. I picked up Josh Palmer in one of my dynasty leagues because just in case they didn't re-sign Mike Williams, but I know they were debating it, but they signed him. So it shows you that they believe in him, which makes me more confident in him going forward.
Me too. And honestly, like all these guys, like all these Chargers, they're making me a Chargers fan. Like low key, they might be like top 5 favorite teams. And their social media team put out that anime opening for their schedule release. Oh, so good.
That's so all
good. That's all me. If you couldn't tell by my background. All right, next guy we got Amari Cooper. I'd still put him in this tier. We actually have rankings wise, he's tied with Mike Williams. With our discrepancies in our rankings. So I think I might have to move him down. I'm thinking about him more and more, and I want to move him down. But that's only because all this Deshaun Watson talk, I think there's a very high percentage chance that he doesn't play this year.
Yeah.
And if that's the case and Baker's out, they're starting Jacoby Brissett.
I know.
But
Brissett is like serviceable.
He's serviceable, sure.
And Cooper is sort of the only guy in town also.
Yeah.
I mean, from that standpoint. I think targets won't be an issue for him.
That's for sure.
He's not sharing with CeeDee Lamb like he was last year. There's no OBJ. There's no Jarvis Landry.
Well, what's funny is I think I read a rumor that OBJ might sign back with the Browns if Baker's gone. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't imagine that.
It'd be kind of funny. If anything.
But yeah, now Cooper's one of those names I don't get very excited about. But he's been relatively consistent.
Mm-hmm. Playing on the Cowboys, that's a high-powered offense too. So, and obviously leaving Dak, it's going to be a bit of a difference, but he's still going to produce at least enough, enough to be a wide receiver 2, as we have him ranked. I think it's going to be hard for him to break out in Cleveland, but. Again, that's assuming Deshaun Watson does not play.
That's what I was just gonna say. We're making that assumption. That's not, out there yet.
It's just part of the risk.
If Deshaun Watson only gets suspended for 4 games or something, that's Deshaun Watson's. That's like a couple of years ago with DeAndre Hopkins. He just fed him the ball every single time.
Yeah.
So there is upside if Watson plays,
but then there's a lot of downside if he doesn't.
Yeah, last year Cooper had. Now I don't know if was he hurt. I think he was hurt a little bit last year.
A little bit.
He had 68 receptions, 865, and 8 touchdowns. I think he missed a couple games though, but
yeah, that's not bad though.
Right.
For Dallas, that isn't that great. Yeah, I guess you just like you hear Dallas's offense, you just think it's really great, but I think him being injured is probably a big part of that.
Mm-hmm. But let's talk about. Do we have Mooney next?
Tell
me we have Mooney next.
We have a tie next, but Mooney is one of them.
Okay. I just love Mooney.
I do too.
And Mooney for the next year.
Insane.
He's got to be like
he's gonna be our mascot.
Yes. Yeah. So obviously, Allen Robinson's gone. Justin Fields in his second year should be better. And Darnell Mooney, let's see. He had 140 targets last year.
I think, if I remember correctly, he had one of the highest percentages of like uncatchable balls.
Okay. I did
So
not hear that, but that makes me feel better about it, I
yeah,
think.
so if Justin Fields gets better, Darnell Mooney should skyrocket.
Right. And Justin Fields didn't play all of last year, right?
No, Andy Dalton started, didn't he?
Yeah. And he don't think he lasted very long. But Mooney had 81 receptions. He had 1,055 yards and only 4 touchdowns.
Oh, I'm surprised he cracked 1,000 actually.
Yeah. But I just feel like there's so much upside there for him to grow with Fields. I mean, I could definitely see him taking another step up. He's due for more TDs. The targets are up there, but
there's no one else there.
Yeah, the Bears are 11th in vacated targets from last year with 160 available. So they did draft Velus Jones Jr. I think in like the 3rd round. I mean, it's kind of like how the Cowboys drafted Tolbert. I don't think he's going to impose on Mooney's stuff there. I do kind of like Cole Kmet, though.
That's what I was just going to bring up.
A sneaky tight end if you kind of get locked out of those top 6 guys or so. If you need to take a guy late.
Yeah, if you want to wait till like the 10th round, which I like doing, I'm all in on Kmet this year.
I think he had no touchdowns last year.
Yep. Yeah, he was one of only a couple.
That's just not going to happen, and yeah. But
and he's literally the second option now. It's Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I totally agree. Tied with Darnell Mooney, we have Terry McLaurin, who I didn't actually read the article, but I think I heard that he was in talks with the Colts, which would be interesting. Yeah, just a rumor, I think, but
I did not hear that.
It's interesting to think about.
Well, I mean, like the Commanders are talking with the Colts.
I didn't read it. I just saw Terry McLaurin and Colts together.
I don't know if that's true.
I saw it a couple different places.
Really? Because that would impact my Pittman rankings. But I'm going with the assumption they're not going to get rid of him.
I think he stays in Washington.
Yeah.
And I like Terry McLaurin.
Me too.
He was a little injured, I think, last year.
Yeah.
And also he was getting the ball from Ryan Fitzpatrick for a game and then Taylor Heineke. So Carson Wentz
is an upgrade.
Yeah, Carson Wentz is definitely an upgrade. Maybe it's not an immense upgrade, but it's an upgrade nonetheless.
Yeah. And McLaurin only had 5 touchdowns last year. He had 130 targets. He had just over 1,000 yards. I think you'll see a lot of the same, and I'm hoping you might get a couple more touchdowns out of him this year.
I think his production is going to go up, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe not by a whole lot, but enough to at least keep him in this tier for sure. All right, and next we have Hollywood Brown, one of the newest members of the Arizona Cardinals, which is still kind of weird.
It is weird.
But with DeAndre Hopkins suspended the first 6 games, Hollywood Brown might be a wide receiver 1 for those 6 games. I think it's very possible with Kyler Murray and that whole team. The issue is when D-Hop comes back, what happens? It's going to go down, his production, right? It's got to.
Yeah, but didn't Hollywood Brown play with Kyler Murray in college too?
Yes, he did.
Their college teammates. Hollywood Brown had 147 targets last year for the Ravens.
Wow.
91 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, he had a very solid year last year. I remember, he was not going very high, and he surprised a lot of people.
No, yeah, he was doing nothing for his first couple of years. It was just kind of like a deep threat. But and now Christian Kirk is gone. I was really high on Rondale Moore until they traded for Hollywood Brown. I still like Rondale Moore as kind of like a Swiss Army knife kind of player there, where they can get kind of, I know I've referenced it a lot. No one's quite like Debo, but kind of like in that role where they move him around and do some jet sweeps or give him some screens. But yeah, I think Hollywood Brown is pretty good in that spot.
Yeah, I think they also re-signed AJ Green.
They did,
so, but not a huge deal, but that's another person there taking away targets.
Yeah.
All right, second to last, Cortland Sutton. That's my guy. That is
That
my
is your
dude.
guy.
He's not your guy by any means.
And I don't dislike him. I just don't have him that high.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he could explode. I think there's just too many unknowns for me to put him that high, I guess is what I would say.
That's fine. I guess I'm banking on the upside of Russell Wilson and just the Broncos as a whole. But it is just a guess. I think Courtland Sutton will take over instead of Jerry Jeudy, but it could be Jerry Jeudy instead of Courtland Sutton, or it could be Tim Patrick out of nowhere.
Yeah,
from the top rope.
I mean, I think I'm going to take the approach until I hear more information from once we get into training camp and stuff like that, and to see if there's a connection. I think I'll probably end up taking the cheaper guy in drafts, as opposed to maybe reaching for one of them. That's just my approach. But I mean, if we're just going to say it's similar to, we don't know if the offense is going to run just like Seattle did, but I mean, he supported Metcalf and Lockett, and Baldwin there for a while with Lockett, so he can support two receivers for sure. And with Javonte Williams running the ball there, I mean, I would almost target anybody in that AFC West offense.
Yeah, honestly,
there's going to be a lot of shootouts, even though a lot of those teams have bolstered their defense as well. But
someone's got to be open.
Yeah,
and that's where maybe teams think that Jerry Jeudy's number one, and then they cover him more, and then at least Courtland Sutton with the second cornerback, whatever.
Yeah, and I don't know.
He's like 6'3", 6'4", I believe. Mm-hmm. I think he's a big target. I think
Sutton wasn't Sutton hurt or coming off an injury last year, right?
Yeah. So, 2 years ago he tore his ACL, and always the year after an ACL tear, no one plays the same. Yeah. But 2 years after, I think they usually excel, which is part of the reason I'm so high on him, because of that weird stat of 2 years removed from an ACL. But regardless, I'm taking him higher than maybe I should. I said this in the last video. If you don't want to take him or Jeudy because they're going kind of similar spots, target Tim Patrick in the 11th round. He's going extremely late, and if one of them gets hurt, Tim Patrick will be that second guy. And it showed last year. He had some very productive games last year, actually.
Yeah, he did.
All right, last but not least, we have Hunter Renfrow. Las Vegas Raiders. Devontae's in town, but he produced last year. So surprising. It's almost like after that whole Ruggs incident, Renfrow just stepped up and demanded everything. And that really worked for the Raiders for a while. His production should come down though with Adams there, and I assume Waller's going to get more involved. Waller kind of fell off a little bit.
Yeah, he was hurt for I think Waller only played 11 or 12 games last year. Yeah. But Raiders have the 5th most vacated targets from last year, 189. So
Ruggs and Zay Jones and
who else? Was Aguilar gone? Maybe.
Oh yeah.
So they had some of those guys kind of trying to form one, wide receiver one, which Adams is going to take
one mega receiver
away. I think with the New England coach over there now, what's his name?
I don't know. I did not follow that.
But the offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels, there it is, over there. I think Renfro is going to keep doing what he's doing. He's going to be that Edelman, Wes Welker kind of role. I mean, I think he'd get 100 receptions again, maybe not nine touchdowns like he did last year.
Yeah.
But I think he'll still kind of give you that consistent output.
Yeah, and maybe it's the fact that Devontae Adams will garner more coverage as well and leave Renfro open even more.
Yeah.
It's in the realm of possibilities. And as you said before, that AFC West, they're going to need to score points.
Yeah.
And Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake are not the best duo. They're fine. But I think they're going to have to throw more than they'll have to run.
If Kenyon Drake even stays on that team, I think he might get cut.
I don't know.
But
we'll see.
Yeah. I'm losing my daylight over here.
And your kids got to go to bed. So
yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we can do a running back one like this pretty soon. And we can do quarterback, tight end, whatever whatever you want, whatever we want.
Deeper wide receiver targets too that we can talk about too.
Yeah, and
these top 24, there's a lot of good options
and some big discrepancies in our rankings.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you liked it. Until next time, see ya.